There's still time to fix your hair, everybody. No, it's perfect. Perfect. It's perfectly.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'm Jack Eigelman. I'm the chair of the People and Environment Recovery Board. I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 9th, 2026 meeting. It's good to see y'all. Thanks for being out here and being patient to get everyone here after the weather. I have a few opening remarks before we do our roll call. Board members are participating in person and virtually. To help our audience follow along, I'll state each of the agenda items aloud. We're streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front of the city website. We also have an option for the public to listen by phone. For those of you out there with us today, I'd like to welcome you, and folks who have joined us, thank you for being here. For today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and listen or comment live. To call in and listen to the meeting, dial 855-925-2801 and enter the meeting code 4525. Your phone will be muted and you will hear the meeting live. At this point, if you would like to sign up to speak, you'll need to push number 3 to enter the speaker queue. We'll take public comment at the end of the meeting. Before we start our roll call, I'd like to remind y'all why we're here. Here is the purpose statement for the Recovery Board. The City of Asheville, Helene Recovery Boards were established to support City Council's vision of a recovery that is rooted in resilience, rises in unity, repairs with care, and ready for tomorrow. The 4 boards represent City Council's priority areas of economy, housing, infrastructure, environment, and people. Through collaboration, expertise, and insight, each of the 4 boards will provide critical input on City Council policy recommendations while also extending the City of Asheville's communications through board member networks. All right. I will now introduce all board members and staff. For members participating remotely, please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking and unmute your microphone when you would like to speak, of course. As I call your name, please say a quick hello. Dee Burris.
Hello.
Hi, Dee. Thanks for being with us. Alma Atkins. Not present. Elizabeth Likas is not present, right? Christy Hurlbert.
Good job. Hello.
Nice to have you. Karen McNeil.
Hi, everyone.
Leah Ferguson.
Hello, good evening.
And Anna, also Brooke.
Hello.
David Greenson.
Good evening.
Dan Leroy. Hello. And Renee Treese.
Hello.
And also joining us is Dawa Hitch, who is the Director of CAPE and Staff Liaison to the board.
Good afternoon, or good evening, everybody.
Still afternoon, still
It
light
feels
out,
like
so
it.
you're all right. Kira Bulin, did I get that? Did I pronounce it
Very
right?
close.
What?
Yes, Bulan.
Bulan, sorry, should know that. And Kira is the Interim Sustainability Director and Staff Liaison to the board.
Hi, everybody.
And Brad Branham, the City Attorney. Good afternoon. He's in the back corner over there. And Alex Smith, the Assistant City Clerk, is also joining us.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks for your work, Alex, keeping us organized. Okay, we're going to move over to our agenda, you all, and everyone should have an agenda at their seat. And so our first item is approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? These are minutes, by the way, from December 1st, 2025. If there are no changes, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Any opposed to approving the minutes? Okay, motion passes.
And Jack,
Yes.
we are going to have to do a roll call vote since we do have some virtual participants.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Alex. Okay, we will do a roll call. So when I call your name, if you will let us know if you approve. D.
Approve.
Let's see. Christy,
Approve.
Karen,
Approve.
Leah,
Approve.
Anna,
Approve.
David,
Approve.
Dan,
Approve.
Renee.
Approve.
And I approve also. The motion passes. And by the way, while we are missing members, we do have a quorum. All right. Our next item on the agenda are updates and reports. And first on that list is an update on the Urban Forest Master Plan. And I believe Keith Atkin is going to be giving us an update. Keith is the urban forester. And is Mindy joining us as well, or just you? Yes. Oh, okay, sorry. And Mindy Morman, who is the Urban Canopy Works. Oh, I see you, Mindy. Mindy is online. Thank you for joining us. Keith, the floor is yours.
Am I good? Thank you very much. Keith Aiken, Urban Forester. Kira asked me to do an introduction to Mindy, so that's what I'm up here to do. If I'd have had a little bit more notice, I probably could have written 6 or 7 pages about how awesome Mindy is. But in lieu of that, I will just go ahead and turn it over to Mindy. Mindy from Urban Canopy Works, and she will be taking over the presentation from here. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Keith. I'll take those pages just between you and I whenever you're ready, about how great I am. So I'm an urban forester and urban planner with Urban Canopy Works. We're your consultant for developing the Urban Forest Master Plan. So prior to joining UCW about 4 years ago, I've worked for 20 plus years as a city forester for municipalities in Illinois, Missouri, and Florida, in parks, public works, development planning, and long-term planning capacities. So I have a lot of experience with urban forestry work in a municipal government setting. And since then have joined Urban Canopy Works to work on mostly urban forest master plans for other communities. So today I'm just going to be giving you kind of an overview of the timeline of the engagement portion of the Urban Forest Master Plan, focusing on board engagement and the public engagement opportunities during our discovery phase, which is just beginning. We use all the input we receive during the discovery phase to understand the community's priorities, challenges, what you want in regards to your urban forest. Because there's not one right way to do a master plan. There's lots of different ways we can do good forestry in a community. So this helps us understand what the community wants and focus our recommendations on achieving what the community tells us is important to them. So next slide. This is just a brief overview of the timeline, and outlined in red are the various opportunities for the board to weigh in. So I know Keith met with you, I think in December, and this is our second meeting where I'm able to meet with you guys. So I appreciate this time. And then we'll be looking for your input throughout the plan, helping us through the engagement phase, and then with kind of goals review and plan review as we move into that portion of the plan. Next slide, please. Thank you. So you received a pretty detailed engagement overview, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. This just outlines all the different engagement opportunities that are available. The way we design engagement through our experience doing this in other communities is to focus on kind of two groups as we define them. Those are our stakeholders. So those are people who impact the urban forest in their profession or in their day-to-day lives. So going beyond like the obvious tree people. This includes like public utilities, transportation designers, large landowners, other public agencies, public health folks. We hear from those people that are out there working what the issues and challenges are so that we can get everyone working together towards the same goals. Also, the stakeholders tend to be the people and organizations who work on implementation. So they're involved on a higher level in what needs to be done to achieve goals. So we want to involve them early and kind of on a really deep level. Broader public engagement is everyone else, everyone from the Asheville community, citizens, young, old, from all communities. We want to hear from you guys what's going on, what your concerns are, what challenges you're facing, and what the opportunities are for improvement. So we design kind of a variety of engagement opportunities so that we can hear from everyone. We've got upcoming meetings with the recovery board. We had a community partners meeting that was canceled for January 31st, rescheduled to February 7th this past weekend. We're also doing kind of one-on-one interviews with individuals and organizations. So Rachel, my partner, and I can talk directly to folks that have information that might help us. We're doing stakeholder workshops here later this month, and then in March, we'll have a public workshop in March. We have a road show that's available where Keith can come and talk to the group. So nobody has to go to an extra meeting. You can just invite him to your club, your homeowners meeting, what have you. It will come to you. And then we have our public survey, which is on the city website. So we're asking everyone to take that survey. Please share it as well. We are trying to hear from everyone through that survey. So far, we've had about 1,000 responses, a little over 1,000. That'll be up through the end of March. So we still have time, but we really need help getting that survey out there and hearing from everyone. Next slide, please. So far, I wanted to share what we've been hearing from the community through the survey. And I think we added a bunch of demographic information to the information that we sent to the committee prior to this meeting. So there are some gaps in demographics. Groups that are currently underrepresented are younger age groups, people of color, renters. So we're really asking people to help spread that through their networks. And we're also working with city staff to make sure we're connecting with those groups too. So far, we're asking people, in addition to other questions, just focusing on some big ones here, what the most important role of trees is. And people are telling us overwhelmingly that heat reduction is a clear priority. So beyond that, we're hearing water quality, wildlife habitat, air quality, but shade from trees and heat relief are way out ahead. So that's a big priority that's emerging from the community. We ask people to tell us why they might choose not to plant trees. This really helps us at UCW understand what you need to do in the future to get people planting more. The biggest response was none. I plant as many trees as I can, so that's great. But we did also hear that there's space limitations, the cost of planting and caring for trees, and then lack of knowledge of what to plant and how to care for it presents some planting. So there's some education, I think, that could be focused on in the future to get people planting trees. We also like to ask what the biggest challenge is or the concern with having trees on your own property. Again, a lack of knowledge rose to the top. People don't know what to plant. And trees are a long-term investment. They're expensive, so people want to make sure they're choosing the right tree for the right location. They also report fear of damage from trees falling or breaking, the cost again, and caring for trees long-term. So lack of knowledge is kind of rising to the top in multiple ways. And finally, we wanted to ask about Helene and what people were thinking about after the storm. So three major themes emerged from that is preventing healthy trees, mature trees from being removed, protecting trees during development, and planting more trees were the three most common responses. So this is just so far. Remember, there's 2 more months, so please take the survey if you haven't and help us spread that around. We also want to say we know that there's been surveys post-storm asking people multitudes of questions. So we're going to be using that information to just kind of in our engagement wrap-up so we get all the information that's available to us. Next slide, please. We also wanted to talk about who we were and what our experience was. There's more information, again, in the packet that you were sent. But Urban Canopy Works is a woman-owned small business. We have, between the 4 of us, decades of experience helping cities with long-term planning to improve their tree canopy. We're based in Kentucky, but most of our work is remote. We do a little traveling, so we don't all live in Kentucky. For example, I joined DCW when I lived in Florida, and now I'm reporting to you from Georgia. And we work nationwide, but a lot of our experience is here in the Appalachian area. So we do urban forest planning projects, urban forest master and management planning, canopy analysis, public engagement, policy, plan, development code review. We serve as municipal arborists in smaller cities that don't have that function as a full-time position. So we have a lot of experience doing municipal work. Again, development code, regulation, review and enforcement, operations analyses, so reviewing forestry operations and finding ways to improve efficiency. And then we do plant appraisals, tree risk assessments, all those kinds of things, and special projects as they arise. So lots of experience doing exactly kind of what we review in the process of a master plan to find gaps and opportunity for improvement. And that's next slide. That's all I have to share with you. I'm here to answer all your questions and hear whatever you'd like to say. Any questions for me or the group?
Yeah, Mindy, thank you very much. That was, you were right on 10 minutes, so you were perfect.
Oh, good.
Thank you for doing that. I do want to point out that there are supplemental materials available linked in the agenda. So there's a lot of background information on this process and the other things that we'll talk about. I also want to mention and welcome Alma Atkins. Thank you, Alma. It's nice to see you. And while we don't have a large amount of time for discussion built into this, I do want to give an opportunity for folks to ask Mindy questions. And I thought just because we have sort of an online presence, maybe what I'll do, Dan, is start with you. If you don't have any questions or comments, fine. We'll just sort of move it down the line this way, and then we'll end with D online, and then we'll start with D for the next discussion and work the other way around. But I would like folks to sort of keep their questions to process what Mindy talked about specifically. I know there's a lot to talk about with this plan and its development, and we will certainly be getting to those over the next few months. This is going to be a big part of our work. So if you can keep your comments or questions to process. Dan?
Great. It sounds like y'all are trying to reach out to some different groups that maybe are underrepresented in the survey so far. If we have ideas or connections or relationships that could be helpful with that, what should we do?
That's great.
Yes, please. We'd love recommendations. I think sending those to Keith or Kiera, they have our contact information and can shoot those directly to us, and I'll let staff give you any more information about that if needed.
And CC me, Dan. I'd love to advocate for those and see the comments as well. Make sure that they get to Mindy. David?
Yeah, my only question is whether y'all are sticking around for the rest of the meeting, because we got a bunch of public comments that do not relate to what you just presented, but do relate to urban forestry. So are we gonna, I'm just curious if you guys are gonna be here when we get into that discussion later, I presume.
Keith will be here.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Keith will be here. Sorry. Okay, Keith will be here, but not Mindy. Thank you, Keith, for sticking around.
So my question is, one of the challenges we have here is enforcement of our current tree canopy ordinance. So what has worked in other cities as far as collaboration with other stakeholders or nonprofits to facilitate enforcement and make the plan have tangible, positive impacts?
Working with other cities, what we find with enforcement is often it's a staffing issue. Most cities don't have someone who's just kind of driving around checking up on things. Most cities are kind of complaint driven, and that's on purpose a little bit because they don't want to set up a department that's just going around looking for violations and fining people. It kind of sets up this us against them situation that the municipal government, that's not their intent. But most enforcement works through a complaint-driven system where residents will call in and say, hey, I think this isn't right. Can you look into it? So we haven't looked into kind of the system at Asheville yet, but when we work with other cities, that's what they hope, is that citizens are involved and that they're letting them know, because they're not staffed to a point where they have people who are just driving around looking for violations.
Thanks, Mindy. Leah.
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Renee.
Yeah, I don't yet either. Thank you.
No further questions from me either.
Hi, I do have a couple questions. Have you worked in storm damaged areas before? And I would just be curious of your lessons learned there.
I have. When I started as the city forester in Tallahassee, Florida, it was right after Hurricane Hermine. And that drove them to start the development process of an urban forest master plan. So they wanted to fill an urban forester in the long-term planning division position to run that project, and that's why they hired me. So I started in the aftermath of their first major hurricane in more than a decade, and they were kind of unprepared. So that plan really focused on recovery after the storm. The University of Florida has done research that we were able to incorporate on wind-resistant trees. So what Tallahassee found out was that they had a very dense urban forest similar to Asheville, but it was lower in quality. Lots of trees that kind of grew as volunteers. They grow fast. They're weak wooded. Lots of structural damage from storms just because of the nature of the type of trees that they were. So the focus of the plan, after doing all this research and all this engagement, was to replant with the right kind of trees, and those trees that were studied and rated as high wind resistant and medium to high wind resistant. So we incorporated kind of what happened with the storm and lessons learned into those goals to make a more wind resistant urban forest. I've also worked in Missouri in the St. Louis area where ice storms are a big problem. It tends to kind of warm up during the day there, so it's not cold enough to snow. It rains and then it freezes overnight. So there's major ice storms in that area sometimes. So again, you're looking for kind of long-lived, stronger type trees to focus planting on. And the way you work that into an urban forest master plan is, let's look at our development requirements and make sure we're incentivizing the planting of those preferred types of trees. Let's look at those development requirements and make sure we're incentivizing the preservation of those types of trees over those less preferred types of trees. And then there's other things you can work with homeowners on private property to make sure those types of trees are being planted. You can work with local nurseries to maybe do rebates or market these preferred types of trees. So it's not just what the city is doing, because most of the urban forest is on private property in all the cities we work in. So there's multiple ways to kind of work that into an urban forest master plan. And hopefully I gave some examples that help you understand how we do that.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. And then the other question I had, just when you're doing these processes, where do you find the biggest opportunities and then the biggest pushbacks?
Oh, it depends on the community. Some communities where we work in, they really, really want to plant trees, but they don't want to put the same focus and the same funding into maintaining trees in the long term over time. So we always are pushing this idea that if you're planting trees, you have to think about the life of the tree and make sure you're funding maintenance of that tree over time, because we know that a tree that gets proactive maintenance lives longer, is healthier, and costs less over time because you're not doing reactive work to respond to unforeseen events with a tree that hasn't been taken care of. So I think that's the biggest thing, is not just planting. Planting is important, but maintaining trees over the long term needs to be just as big as a priority and just as big as a focus when you're doing your budget planning and your work planning.
Thanks, Mindy. Good questions. Thank you, Christy. Alma.
First of all, forgive me for being late and not hearing your full presentation, but I do have a question from the things that I've already heard, especially when we was talking about the trees that will be planted. As far as Western North Carolina and the trees that are indigenous to this specific area, what, if you could, give me, what 3 trees would you really go for that would probably, show a better return on the investment and grow faster so we can see? We live in a microwave, where we want to see it quick, fast, in a hurry. Whether we know that the tree is going to take some time for a tree to grow, but I'm just thinking about what trees are, flourishers. And if you could give me that information, I'd appreciate it.
I'll just say we focus on biodiversity, so you're not going to love my answer.
Okay.
We want to plant a multitude of variety of trees to have an urban forest that can resist stressors from insect pests and storms and all these things. So we want lots of different types of trees. So when people ask me what to plant, I say, well, look around. What aren't people planting? What's native to your area? And plant the thing you're not seeing. Because in that way you'll increase diversity. But one part of this project is looking at the USDA Forest Service climate models and putting together a list of trees that are resilient to climate changes. So we will have kind of a list of trees that are expected to do better in your area, trees that are expected to move into your area as the climate warms, and trees that are expected to do not as good as time goes on. So hopefully that will help a little bit planning in the long term for trees that we know that are going to do good and trees that will be moving into the area. We started to put that list together, and a couple of the species that they say are going to do better in North Carolina in general are southern live oak, cabbage palms, the state tree of Florida, not actually a tree. So you'll start seeing some more southern species move north naturally.
Thanks, Mindy.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I know it's a complicated answer to that question. Thanks for taking it. Dee is online. Dee, do you have any questions for Mindy?
Yes, I would just like to follow up on the question that Dan had. I sort of missed some of that. I don't know, Dan, if he could repeat it and your answer to that, Mindy.
Which question was that? Can someone help me out?
Dan?
I was just asking if we had contacts or organizations that could be helpful with getting the word out about the survey to bring in more responses from more diverse audiences, who we should contact. And I think the answer was Keith and Copy Jack. Is that right? Yeah, and let's definitely help that. I think that's a key role of the members of the commission in our connection. So let's get some info. Dee, anything else? Any other questions for Mindy before we move on?
No, thank you.
Thanks, Dee. Thank you, Mindy, for taking those questions. And I appreciate your answers and the work that you've done. We're looking forward to this.
Yes, my pleasure. Thanks for listening. Thanks for letting me be here.
We are going to move on to new business. And our first item under new business is Resilience Hub mapping. Kira is going to present on this and give us an introduction to the project, the Resilience Hub mapping project, and to inform us about engagement and project development. And we're going to spend about 45 minutes on this. We'll see where we are. We want to make sure we save time for public comments towards the end. So, Kira, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. I think Alex is working on moving us over to the podium so that our guests are going to have their speaker notes available. And while they're doing that, I'm going to kick us off. So Resilience Hub mapping, we started in December talking a little bit about our organizational work plan project, which had some nested sub-projects inside of it as we explore resilience hubs in the community this year. So this is one of those nested sub-projects, and we're going to dig a little deeper today, provide an opportunity for discussion for y'all to get familiar with what the project is, and then help us to continue to shape next steps. So I'm going to get started with just a brief introduction. I don't know who's running these slides, but if you go to the next slide, that'll be amazing. Is it there? Okay, I can also step to the podium. Excuse me while I shuffle. Can you make it bigger again?
Yeah, that was
Do we
better.
know how to make this work? Logan, can you make the slides bigger? Thank you. Okay, I'm going to breeze through these really quick so you can get to the more interesting people. But I want to make sure that we have a little bit of context here. With this project, the Resilience Hub Mapping Project, we're building on the continuous storytelling from the Neighborhood Case Study Program, from the Elevate AVL projects, and we're honoring the community resilience that we saw firsthand in the days, weeks, and months, and ongoing after Helene. So this slide that we're looking at here is a little bit of a timeline. It takes us back to the declaration of the climate emergency that happened at City Council in 2020, and then some of the work that's happened through the climate initiatives here at the city, through the listening and learning and resource development. We developed a climate justice data map, incorporation into city operations, some processes and tools that we've developed and deploy for project decision making internally, and then in the last couple years, the Elevate Asheville project, the Community Space Upfit project, and the Community Engagement Academies. These all have touch points with what we know as community-led resilience, and figuring out how we integrate our city operations more effectively and efficiently with those projects is one of the outcomes that we're looking for with the Resilience Hub Mapping project. So just want to provide a little bit of context on the shoulders that we're working from here. This is the scope of the Resilience Hub Mapping. I'm going to leave the good stuff to the good people who are coming after me, but wanted to make sure that we're clear on the desired outcome is to build this community-wide Resilience Hub asset map and analysis. So to provide us with some data-driven, eyes on the ground, information coming from the people who are doing the work in community in the days, weeks, months, and years after Helene. So they're going to tell you more about the details of that. I'll leave it there for now. And then, of course, y'all are here. There's an important role for you here in the organizational work plan project to help us to be sure that this commitment that we have, that both the organizational work plan and this mapping project were grounded in the community wisdom and the leadership that you all have here and that you can tap into through your networks, personally, professionally, in your lives. And we want to make that commitment real. And this is one of the most tangible ways we can through the Resilience Hub Mapping project, participatory mapping, opportunities for people to plug in lots of different ways that you'll learn about from our folks here. I do, while we're on the slide, also want to reiterate, reemphasize that the role of council is our final decision makers, right? Like, we are coming together, we're gathering data, we're visualizing it, we're putting recommendations forward, but as we think about policy, we are putting those recommendations and those ideas in front of City Council for them to make considerations in what that looks like in terms of budget, in terms of program prioritization, and it's the role of our City Council to consider that policy implementation in the long run. That's enough from me. I'm turning it over to Crystal. Is that right? Okay.
Kira, before,
Is it here? Oh, yeah.
can we make the slides a little bigger still? Thank you.
When you close the box.
Do I have to?
Advance.
Sorry, y'all, I didn't give you an introduction on the agenda, so make sure that you introduce yourselves as you get started, if you don't mind.
Trying to get to that slide right there. Do you mind just?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Crystal, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Crystal Perez. I work for Thrive Asheville. Thrive Asheville is a local nonprofit, and we are uniquely positioned to do this work. Why? Because since Helene, we have been working deeply embedded with community. in resiliency efforts, building trust and relationships that are essential for community engagement. Tribe convened more than 120 residents that identify as Res Hub leaders or participants on Resiliency Hub's exploration last March. With the collaboration with United Way, we also co-convened the Buncombe County Long-Term Recovery Group that coordinated more than 70 organizations. We also facilitated 6 lessons for recovery, connecting Western North Carolina with disaster-impacted communities across the country and reaching more than 700 residents. Thrive has broad and deep community relationships, which makes mobilizing this effort quickly possible and helps ensure that the data collected will be meaningful to our community. Well, yeah, okay, I feel some feedback there. You good? We can move to the next slide. Back one. One more. Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, awesome. So, the team conducting this project consists of 2 groups. First, we have Thrive Asheville's staff. We have our executive director, Dr. Leah Ferguson. She brings over 20 years of experience in participatory research and system analysis, and her responsive network analysis tool and process are currently being used in Eastern North Carolina and New Orleans. Kate Pett is our director. She has led community initiatives in Asheville for more than 20 years and is trained in participatory, community-driven problem-solving approaches. Myself, I have experience in community engagement and in social justice program support. I'm a native Spanish speaker engaged in a national selected cohort for BIPOC leaders focused on racial equity. We have Thea Rogers. She is our communications and development coordinator, and she has over a decade of experience in communications, change management, human resources, and data-informed strategy. To the next slide, and Kate is going to.
Good evening. I'm Kate Pett, and I'm the program director of Thrive Asheville. It's great to see you tonight. Thanks for having us here for a few minutes. Thrive Asheville is so fortunate that we live in a community that's really just so rich with talented folks. And so we've been able to add to our own team assets by contracting with these local experts who can really help this project hum. Part of our mission is really to bring the right people to the table so that we can really solve the problem. And we think we've been really lucky that we got these folks together. First, there's Tiffany Debelow. She's the executive director of CPC. Some of you probably know Tiffany. She is a community leader, and she has vast experience in using participatory strategies to engage communities in change making. Matt Hutchins is here tonight. I'm so glad. You can grill him later. And he is the CEO of Fern Leaf. And Fern Leaf and the Fern Leaf team will take the data that's collected from Dr. Ferguson's survey and turn it into a visual map of resilience hubs. And we feel so lucky that Matt and the Fern Leaf team is working with us because they have a lot of experience working with the city. They were instrumental to creating the climate justice map, and they're going to be extremely helpful in now creating a new layer of understanding by adding on resilience hub data. We're also joined by Reggie Tidwell, who is the partner at 40 Hearts. And Reggie also has worked with the city before. He was instrumental in helping create the toolkit, the AVL Climate Action Toolkit, Elevate AVL Climate Action Toolkit. And he's done a great job of taking complex information and translating it into information that's really accessible to the community. Finally, Peyton Seiler-Jones will be joining us so that she can help us create policy recommendations that really fit our community based on what we learn. As I mentioned, authentic community engagement is really critical to Thrive. We really believe that community engagement is really a two-way street, and it's really a commitment to listen to people, but also to carry that data back to them and provide them with opportunities to shape what comes out of the work that emerges. So we're intentional on our design so that we ensure that the data collected is inclusive on the front end, but then there's also opportunities to circle back around and fill in any gaps that we might find. So CPC will be really instrumental in this. Particularly, they'll be working in 3 different ways. First of all, they're helping us create a community advisory committee that will be diverse, representing many communities and constituent groups in Asheville. They'll also be helping us with conducting key informant interviews. And finally, they'll be designing and facilitating a day of listening, where people from throughout the community can come and tell us about their Helene experiences, what's happened as a result, and help us shape the path forward. CPC will also be really critical to helping us kind of go back through and do a gap analysis on the back end and help us provide targeted outreach to any groups that might not have been able to participate in the first go-round.
Community inventory. Thrive will lead the overall implementation of this work. Leah has worked closely with the staff to create the public input page on this project and launch the Adapted Resiliency Survey. And Thrive staff will promote the survey and analyze the results. Surveys will be analyzed for trends and themes, and Thrive staff will also manage the team of experts that we have described and support the facilitation and work of the Community Advisor Committee. Next slide. Thrive believes that data collected from the community belongs to the community, and for this reason, the engagement design, the map, and analysis will be produced accessible, approachable, and useful, not only for the city leaders, but also the community members. Reggie and his team will help as this approach mirrors the work in the Climate Action Toolkit, the Elevate ABL, and they will design the communications that ensure that the community understands what we learn. Next slide.
As I mentioned before, the Fern Leaf team, led by Matt Hutchins here, will map the data collected from the Adaptive Resilience Survey. And this will ensure that we complete 2 key functions of the project. First of all, it will help us document the community inventory of Resilience Hub locations and services. And second, it will create a geolocated visual map and a key asset display. There will be 3 layers of information. I realize this is like a lot of 2s and 3s, but anyway, work with me. So there will be 3 layers of information. There'll be the individual hub layer, where people will be able to see the specific strengths and needs of each hub site. And then there'll be an analysis layer showing, then there'll be a hub network layer showing the connectivity between hubs, and finally, an analysis layer that reveals gaps and strengths between hubs and in the entire ecosystem as a whole. Next. The GIS map will be a valuable tool which is accessible to the community. However, it will not be it may not be what hub managers want to use to self-organize. If this is the case, we're poised to explore the best tool for the hub cohort network. Thrive will be responsive to these needs by developing an additional tool. So in addition to the GIS, an additional tool that could be more useful and a little bit more friendly for the community can be developed. Crystal will tell you a little bit about that.
Awesome. So what we can see here are some examples of what we mean. The first one to the left is the map of permaculture projects across Ontario, which makes a wide range of community-led work visible in a way that is easy and to explore and understand. And then to the right, we have an example of a story map that Fern Leaf produced for the city of Richmond, Virginia, and it combines data with narrative to show place-based work connected with lived experience. Both of these maps demonstrate how mapping can go beyond tech information to tell a story in a way that it's meaningful to residents and decision makers, and actually helps to organize the ecosystem. Finally, we want to ensure that our findings from this project are translated into opportunities for the city to effectively integrate with community-led efforts. Peyton Seiler, with partners with Thrive Asheville, will help identify climate policy and implementation strategies to support the next steps for the city and the community in strengthening resiliency hubs. Next.
All right, home stretch. You can't see that very well, but what this slide tells you is that this project is well underway. So we started in January, and Leah called together the team of both Thrive staff and worked with city staff, and as well as our kind of team of experts to get the work organized, to establish the project page, and to make sure that all of our project plans will meet with the city's needs. This month, just last week, the Adaptive Resilience Survey was launched. So here's a real opportunity for this board to really be key in making this effort successful by ensuring that you share the survey with folks that you know who were directly involved in Resilience Hub activities. So that's available right now on the public input page, and we hope that you will help connect people to that as soon as possible. We hope to collect responses from 2 people per hub. Anyone can take the survey, and we'll sort it appropriately, but our goal is to have 2 people per hub so that we can get a more robust picture, kind of multiple perspectives on the same hub. Recruitment of the Community Advisory Committee is also underway, but if you know somebody that you think would be particularly appropriate for that, we're certainly open to your suggestions. We already have 12 folks who've accepted the invitation. We're very excited about that, and we will hold the first Community Advisory Committee meeting on Friday, February 27th. Not to be confused or to create more confusion, but Thrive is hosting in the morning the Western North Carolina Resilience Hub Summit. After that concludes, we'll have a special session for City of Asheville Hub leaders, and that will be the first meeting of the Community Advisory Committee. In March and April, we'll focus on collecting qualitative data through stakeholder interviews. Again, another opportunity for y'all to make suggestions about who would be the right people to interview about their experiences. We would love to talk with folks. We'll hold at least 20 interviews during March. Some of those will be conducted by CPC, and some of those will be conducted by Thrive staff. We welcome your engagement on who those folks should be. We'll also be planning our Day of Listening. The Day of Listening will happen in April on a Saturday at a time that it's really easy for everyone in the community to participate. It'll be held at a community-based location. There'll be childcare and food, and everyone is welcome to come tell their Helene stories and help us understand how to best move forward together. In May, we'll complete the project analysis and a final report to guide the future city community investments and work to strengthen our network of resilience hubs. I think that we are going to conclude our part of the presentation. Again, Matt Hutchins is here from Fern Leaf, and if anyone has any questions for him as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kate, Crystal, and Leah for your work on this, and Matt for attending and your work on this. It's really interesting, and I do want to open the floor to questions. So just for the sake of time, if you could limit your question to 1, and then we'll pass that over to the next, and we'll work in reverse this way. And we do want to keep an eye on time so we can be done at 7. So D, we'll start in reverse order. D, if you will start online and then work over to Alma. D, do you have any questions or comments?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And we can always roll back around if you're not ready. If you're not ready, that's okay. Yeah. If you want to pass it, we'll come back to you, Alma. And Alma, make sure you speak into the microphone, pull your microphone down, because they had some trouble with that, right?
I'm just trying to process some things as far as the key characters as to pushing this forward, moving it forward. I just want to make sure, just for my question, it has nothing to do with anybody, but is it a conflict of interest if you're the executive director of one of the programs that is doing the work with this mapping? That's my question. I'm sorry.
No, it's a great question. I'm glad you asked it, and I'll kick it over to our staff.
I can address it from a process standpoint because I do realize I left this out of my introduction and I should have included it. And then if Brad or Dow wants to add anything. We did select Thrive through a competitive RFP process. And so the city issued a request for proposals, or RFP, in October. And Thrive and several other groups responded to that request for proposals with complete proposals. And we had an internal review and evaluation team, and Thrive was the highest scoring proposal. So that the contract for performing this work on behalf of the city was awarded through an RFP process. In terms of Leah's participation here at the board, she's here to answer questions specific to her area of expertise, but her staff is representing Thrive, and she's wearing her People and Environment Recovery Board hat. Thank you for that question, and I certainly should have included that in their introduction.
No, it's okay. Good,
Anything to add
good
there?
question. Here comes Brad.
Thank you. First, I always want to say thank you for asking those questions, because you should always be wondering if there might be a conflict. Don't ever just wonder. That's why we have attorneys here to help you answer those questions. As Kira has mentioned, there's already been a process that we've gone through to select this through a very, very specific, very scientific process. In terms of going forward, what does that mean? The general rule that I want to give everybody for a conflict of interest is ask yourself, if I vote on something and a potential conflict exists, am I likely to have a financial, personal impact from that? And if the answer to that is no, even if you have association with it, even if you have some sort of a very preconceived idea about what you'd like to happen, all of that's fine. It is really if you end up having some sort of a personal interest in it. And what that means is we might just ask you to recuse yourself from a single vote, maybe a couple votes on that, maybe not participate in a particular discussion. But we understand that there's going to be some interests and expertise that are going to overlap with a lot of the work of this board. That's why you're on this board, is because you come with those areas of expertise. So we expect that there's a process. It's absolutely not prohibitive to have you on this board. But when it comes up, ask yourself, and if you think there's an issue, make sure that you bring it to Kira, bring it to myself, and we can evaluate that for you. We'll take the steps to protect the integrity of the vote, and then we'll keep moving on. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Brad. Christy, do you have a question?
I sure do.
All right.
Thanks so much. I was wondering where else you have done these processes and what has worked, and some feedback from those.
Yeah, Thrive just completed a project in the fall with Buncombe County, different topic, but very similar process. It was called the Just Home Project, and we did a very similar approach of establishing a community advisory committee, which helped us really quickly mobilize a broad group of people who would have an investment in the project and help us collect well above our target goal for surveys, and then complete well above the number of surveys that we were requested. And I think the thing that really this process, when we really have community leaders leading it, is it really creates a sense of ownership. So even though that project has completed, I can see now that community organizations and leaders are continuing to act on that and push the work forward.
And just remind me, do y'all just work in the Asheville-Buncombe County area, or do you work in
Buncombe County is our footprint, although this particular survey, the Adaptive Resilience Survey, is something that Leah's developed in other work that she's done on network analysis.
Got it, thanks.
No questions, but thank y'all for bringing this forward and working through this important topic.
Hi. Thank you for everything so far. I do have a few questions, and I understand that we might not be this far along yet, but I'm curious, in the thing you had us fill out that said, you know, what did we experience after Helene and where were the resilience hubs, I found as I was writing that probably 70 to 80% of the things I wrote down are things that are not there right now because we're not in a state of that kind of emergency. So in thinking about this project, sorry, it makes me nervous to talk. In thinking about this project, it makes me think of, you know, what's something that's going to be here all the time and is an everyday resilience hub, and could and will a project like this be able to be layered or scalable in the state of emergency where a whole bunch of other things pop up and would be very valuable information?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, I think one of the things that your question surfaces is that there's a lot of different definitions about what a resilience hub is.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the important findings, I think, is to kind of do some level setting around what we mean when we talk about a resilience hub. And the Resilience Hubs Summit in Western North Carolina that is going to happen on the morning of Friday the 27th. We're welcoming a leader from around the world who's worked in resilience hubs who has a pretty specific definition of resilience hubs, and it has to do with being in a specific place and having specific types of infrastructure. But there are other folks who think that resilience hubs are much more flexible and transient. So I think that your point about trying to surface what we mean when we're talking about resilience hubs is really important, and one of the things that can come out of this as well.
Okay, thank you. My other
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, somewhat.
Sort of. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of my other questions
Also,
is the final product that you would share with the community. Would that be a mostly online resource? And what other languages would it be translated into?
Such a good question. Thank you for asking that. So Matt could tell us about the GIS map, just because nobody's asked him a question yet. But that will be online, and you saw the digital tools that might be used, and those might be digital. But one of the things that Reggie did with the AVL toolkit was really to create print versions of something. So for those folks for whom digital access isn't a possibility, we can really be sure that in some way they have meaningful access to the information as well. So I don't know what exactly Reggie's tools and 40 Hearts Hands tools are going to look like. That's something that they're going to assess when we get much further down the road. But the intention is to have something print as well as digital. And as to what languages it'll be translated into, I don't know the answer to that question. We'll have to really take that seriously. Thanks for asking it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, first, I want to just thank Kate and Crystal for doing such a fantastic job talking about something that is very layered and complex and making it digestible, and appreciate your time and effort into it. I'm very proud to be part of this team. I don't have any questions. I do, I'm always going to be very curious about how to navigate, because I'm like, we can talk about some of the things around the survey and some things like that as we move forward, but know that, obviously on the board want to hold space for your input today, but if you do have specific questions, you certainly can reach out to me, as can anybody in the community as well. We are very open to just have conversations about this work.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, Kate.
Dan?
This has been great, and thank you for all your service to our community over the years.
Back at you.
No.
Volunteers.
You're doing it. I just wanted, it sounds like there are three things that you're asking of the commission right now, ultimately, is one, to share the survey, two, to suggest committee members, of which there are 12. How big will that committee be? Is there an optimal
up
number?
to like 15-ish.
Okay.
So we've got most of the seats, but I would say that it really is flexible. What we learned in our fall project, as Christy was asking about, was that we actually recruited about 20 folks for the Community Advisory Committee, and as y'all know, that turned out to be a sweet spot, because then we could ensure that we would have 13 or 14 folks who could make it to every meeting.
Yeah.
There will be 4 meetings of the CAC.
Okay, cool. And we could send those recommendations to
Please.
Leah?
Yes,
and
that
then
would be excellent.
shoot them up. And then the third thing, it sounds like you're also in need of, and Renee was mentioning this, is sharing the who has been involved with resilience following the storm, where they are and what they did.
Yeah,
Is
so that
that
we can
about
do
right?
interviews, yes. So
Okay.
any key stakeholders who might not show up on our CAC, on the Community Advisory Committee, or they would be great folks for us to interview, because we are going to interview those additional 20 people. So
Okay. So that's our key homework. And even if they're not there, right, we should still get them on paper and figure it out.
yeah,
Okay. Awesome. All right. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for being here. I don't have any questions.
Thanks, Karen.
I have a question, and it builds on the question around location. So I noticed in your the slide that the Resilience Hub is being preliminarily defined as a location that provides critical services, et cetera. And I know that hubs, other places, as you said, have been defined as places and/or networks, right? Response capacities. And I guess I'm just trying to understand. This seems like a really, really valuable way to map, literally, like the physical locations but like, what about how are we going to include the data of networks that are not geographically based? And I can give a for instance, which is that, the YMI Cultural Center has been a resilience hub for 134 years. During the storm, my organization collaborated with a bunch of organizations to do a massive operation out of the YMI. YMI was a critical piece of that, but I would suggest they are not the only. They don't really hold all of the information. Like I've got the hundreds of volunteer contact information and the sort of map of how we did all of that coming together in that location, like 2 days after the storm, with 12 different organizations participating out of that one location. So how would that information be under YMI on the map? And I know you don't have to know all these answers, but I just think there's a lot of situations like this where.
David, I've got all the answers.
Oh,
don't
good.
you,
I'm
right?
so glad, Kate. I'm not surprised.
No, but I am going to take a stab at that, and then Leah and Matt keep trying to get Matt up here, so someone will ask him a really hard question. I hope you can ask him a really hard question. But here's my answer to that, David. So we also have a partner that we're working with who does not have like a location, Unite, right? They are a resilience hub. They worked with the Latinx community across Western North Carolina after the hurricane. They operate in many different places. So one of the things that I think is exciting about this process is that it's not just about location, it's also about the strength of the connectivity between places and people. And that's one of the things that the survey helps assess, that Matt will be figuring out how to map. And I can't tell you exactly how he's going to make that magic happen, but there is, and maybe Leah wants to chime in, I don't know, but measuring the intensity of the connections and the ability of organizations to adapt is the key function of this survey, beyond just the actual place that it's sitting in. So I hope that started to answer the question.
Yeah, I think what you should do really is take the survey, because I think we should all do it, actually. It's really helpful to know what you're asking people to do, and we can sort out the data on the back end of it. It's fine. But I think that idea around the ecosystem, the resilience ecosystem, and how both the emergent parts of it, like things that just sprouted up, there's actually a pathway that we can capture that. And then also, what are the critical organizations that are providing that connective tissue? So I think that's really excellent. And we just, in terms of the survey, like, we don't have to gatekeep how many people take it and how they share the story. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, so I did start the survey and I got stumped on the first question because it asked me for the address. And I was like, well, wait, should I put the YMI's address? Because that's where we were located during the storm. But that's not necessarily the location where I would, I could put my home address, but that's not very relevant either, because that wasn't relevant to the story. So, I mean, I know you guys, it's a survey and got to put something, so I don't want to be too much of a stickler, but that was what sort of prompted this. I was like, oh, I'm not sure what location to put for this. So, anyway, but yeah.
Matt, do you want to step to the podium and explain yourself here?
Yeah, well, I think it's such a great question, and it's the question of how do you map something as a mapping project that can't be mapped. And so I think it is something you're wanting to look at how to represent. It's something that we've faced a lot in resilience assessment work, which is how do you represent services that are provided, community services provided that may not be geographically based necessarily. So I think it's a really good question of your organization, what you mentioned, and it may be kind of a set aside we want to have in this mapping project to acknowledge the things that are maybe not as geographically distributed in the same way that physical location or resources are. So something we'll definitely keep in mind and think about how do we represent that visually and acknowledge that as well.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, David, for bringing that up. Yeah, Dan.
Hi, Kate. Thank you. I have a question about your geographical scope. I assume based on the contract that it's focused on the city of Asheville, but can you talk about how it might connect with the county, or if there's any cross-jurisdictional opportunities in terms of other places throughout the region that are doing similar projects?
Yeah, this is purely a City of Asheville mapping project, although I think back to David's point, it's going to be interesting how we see what's hanging off the edges of that City of Asheville map. I think that we've already had conversations with some of the other jurisdictions in our county about the potential to see how great it would be if this map wasn't just in the City of Asheville, and how we could extend this into the broader context of the whole county so that we could all have this understanding in this map. So at the summit, not specifically related to this project, we are looking at, how the larger ecosystem of Western North Carolina resilience hubs can think about networking, but we don't have a project underway for that in either the larger region or in the county. But I think there would be great benefit. I mean, I think the more we can know and the more that we can, be able to understand how we all work together. I mean, that's really resilience, right? That's really what resilience is, more than solar panels, more than a source of water. It really is how much can we help each other. That's what everyone told us when we brought everybody together last March is, I want to be connected to all the other people doing this work. If I'm connected to other people, I know that we'll be okay.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Kate, Crystal, and Matt, for being here. Y'all, we are going to move on to our next item of new business, which is B on the agenda, which is...
Can I just jump in for a quick second? I just want to pause.
Yes.
I know we're running out of time and moving towards our public comment time, but I just do want to pause because we did ask you all to do a homework assignment, and we didn't really take time in the discussion dialogue here to ask you to reflect on that here. And so I want to make sure that we, in the limited time that we have, acknowledge the fact that this Resilience Hub mapping project is contributing to the larger organizational work plan project and to our kind of growing and shared understanding about definitions, as we talked about, and particularly around as we look to inform the role of the city in standing behind and collaborating with community-led organizations, as we started in this conversation, but really asked you all to kind of do some of that reflection with your own personal experience and or your network experience to help us advance that conversation. So there's some really tangible asks, like please do the survey. Think about the hub organizers who should fill out the survey or participate on the CAC. But just wanting to re-put that back into the context of, and also we're asking you and your leadership to help us inform the city's role and to define what we want a Resilience Hub network to look like. That's a partnership, between individuals, households, neighborhood organizations, community-led entities, and the roles of the city and of course, in the county as we think about the overlapping regionally. So I think we probably won't have a ton of time to dive into that as a discussion today, but I do want to raise us back up a little bit, and if there are key takeaways that we have a minute or two to share, some reflection from the exercise, and or invite you to share those back with us individually, to us as staff, or to the project coordination team. Happy to catch up with you for a coffee. We really want to mine the expertise that's in this group to be sure that we're aligned with your leadership and the ideas that are coming to you from your community and your personal experience, because we want to build on those multiple personal experiences.
Can I add one thing? Back to that engagement side of things, one of the greatest values of having all of your different experiences and points of view on this board is so that there can be great ideating, right, with what your experiences have been. And so, yeah, perhaps maybe there's not enough time in this meeting today, or we could schedule, the project's going to be happening for a little bit of time. But I think it could be a very rich dialogue that would be useful for city staff and that project specifically to see the ideas that spark when the people sitting around this table have the opportunity to have dialogue about what services, you know, I'm looking around the room and you guys represent a lot of great organizations and have a lot of great personal experience. So when we're talking about that as a group, ideas will likely spark that we could never come to understand if we were doing that alone. So just as we think about how we're engaging around this idea of resilience hubs, maybe that's where we can go with it, Kira. We can keep these questions in mind. Now you've got a deep dive into this great project with the mapping, so you know that your ideas can eventually have a place that will be accessible to both staff and the community as a whole, and that's what we all need to know, right, when we find ourselves in those situations where we're not sure what resources are available or where to get them. How does that sound? Just kind of keep this as these questions as a placeholder?
Yeah. Thank you all for pointing that out. I think it was helpful to kind of get that overview, and a sense like that did help tremendously. So I'm glad we had an opportunity to ask questions and get clarified. But we do have a few minutes. Perhaps there are some public commenters online. Alex, is there anyone online? I'm thinking about managing time. While Alex is doing that, maybe we do have a couple of minutes to sort of meet that call to action, maybe to start the conversation. We'll table it, come back to it, and see where we can have thoughts from folks about the who, what, and where, or other inspiration that comes to mind after seeing that and what this means. Dan.
Yeah, so our organization, United Way, has some experience with, a lot of experience with 211, which is a kind of information referral service, phone-based. One thing that we know is true is that resources change, and during disasters they changed a lot. And one thing that feels very true about this is that you could do the best job in the world of surveying the community and understanding where all the resources were and where all the hubs were and everything else, and then the next disaster could come and it could be totally different. And so I'm wondering, and this might be a question for, well, I guess we have you here, Leah. How will this system be designed to evolve in real time as the resource availability and locations change?
So for the GIS mapping piece, I can't necessarily speak to that, because once we're done with the project, the GIS map will be housed at the city, and so how that gets updated, that'll be a different piece. But the survey itself, and when we talk about adaptive capacity, it is really exactly that. It's more about how quickly can existing organizations pivot and where we have existing adaptive capacity within our community and where there might be significant gaps. I think critically to this project is to try to understand who wasn't very well served. And we already kind of have some insight into that. So for example, when Thrive did the gathering last March, folks from the deaf and hard of hearing community talked about how it was very challenging for them to get good information. So we suspect what we'll see other things like that, or other areas of our community where we want to be able to understand and have a line of sight to that and that experience. But also, you know, in what makes communities resilient really is self-organizing and the ability to self-organize without outside direction. And so I think that probably, in terms of just like personally my own sense of resiliency, is kind of a potential way forward. But I think we need to start with the baseline. So that's really what this is kind of that baseline, kind of the heartbeat. What happened? How do we capture that? What did we learn? And then how do we take those learnings into whatever we need to do next? to be a little bit better prepared to support self-organizing. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Dan, and how fluid it was and is and how that will change. And I also appreciate your point of view on that and thinking about the who. I didn't think about that. With a couple minutes left, other comments, you all, along those lines? And this will be the start of a long conversation.
I have a quick comment.
Yeah, Karen.
I was just thinking about what you were saying about the YMI being the geographical location, but that you have all the information as far as the community volunteers. And then there was talk of strengthening the ties and overall just enhancing the continuity of services. And I was just thinking that, and this is probably something that you've already thought about, but just having your list of volunteers on the YMI's administrative drive of some sort, so that whoever is running the YMI during the next crisis might have access to those volunteers to that geographical location. Does that make sense?
David? Looks like you're ready to say something. Go for it. Press a button.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to put myself back in the, if we're thinking about this primarily in terms of applicability in a crisis, and I know that's not the only application, but it's like what I noticed was that there was almost immediately real-time mapping that was going on, right? So there was complex, self-organized, like who's doing what? Oh, they're doing that? Like we started doing things and then we found out somebody else was doing it. We're like, great, let's just send everybody there to do that. And so to me, in terms of overall resilience, I wonder about how do we create mechanisms that better support that kind of real-time spontaneous, like if something like this that you guys are building had existed right after the storm, I'm just not sure, like unless I had a tremendous amount of trust that it had been kept up to date. For example, all the people that volunteered for us, like I have all those sign-in sheets, and I don't know how useful it would be if in a storm like 2 years from now. We're such an itinerant population, right? It would be more, how do we, the tools, like the things we developed in terms of our systems could be very useful, but it would be more like we'd want to build it like almost immediately, like figuring out who's doing what and then being able to update each other in real time. Like how do we build that sort of insta-mapping capacity? And so I guess I'd be curious in this process, how can we learn more about like how, yes, build it, yes, maintain it, but then also how do we create the sort of ready technology to do like a quick mapping that anybody can tap into when there's the next hard to foresee disaster comes, because all our preparation may not, like the stockpiles of things that we built aren't the things we're going to need then, so to speak, So how do we, that would be sort of my question, which I know is probably something exciting for you all.
No, it's exciting. Y'all, we have time for one more comment or question or thought before we move to our last agenda item. I know I want to say, I've been thinking a lot about the physical places that matter as well. And I know in Western North Carolina, we have this great legacy of community clubs that came post World War II. I think there were 80 or something community clubs somewhere in Asheville. Others were in various communities around Western North Carolina. And for example, the West Asheville library, police station, library complex. I know, thinking about, I know that with the bond, there are different ways, there are different incentives and pressures to restore and rebuild those physical places. So I'm curious about the physical places as well in the next and where we're putting that investment. I'd love to have that conversation. Y'all, we're going to move on to our last.
Sorry,
go for it. Sorry.
Just really quick, I want to offer one point
Yes.
of clarification about the current project to just for the record, that the intention of the mapping project is as a planning exercise and tool. We're intentionally saying what happened at this point in time. There may be a time where we make the decision that this is a database or a tool that we want to maintain, but that is not necessarily the outcome. This is a planning tool. This is a structure to collect the wisdom of the experience and to be able to see it in terms of service and geography and network and adaptive capacity. But I wouldn't necessarily say that we are investing in a long-term unsustainable or unmaintainable database of where people go and who goes there.
That makes sense.
For the record.
I'm sorry, I have one quick question
Yeah,
just to
go, Renee.
clarify that. So is this mapping for post-Helene or is it for present day right now?
Yes, both. We are asking people, where did you go, what did you do, and also, is that still active? So to your earlier question,
Yeah.
we want to know where you went in all of these pop-up activities, and also, we know that a lot of that is not currently happening. To your point, David, it's responsive, it's reactive, it's important in the moment, and the way that we reactivate that next time will likely be different. But at this moment, in the act of data collection and learning from the experience that we all just lived through, we want to pull it all in to be able to say, and now we're making decisions, ideas, next steps based on this treasure trove of lived experience.
No, thank you, Kira. That's good. I think we all have a little bit to process to figure out the way forward. But thank you. That was very helpful, actually. Thank you. All right. So now, okay. Now we're going to go on to new business item B, which is rescheduling the April 6th, 2026 meeting. That is, April 6th is the time that it's scheduled, and I'm going to take this one. And April 6th, we decided we're going to move that date because it is during Asheville City Schools and Buncombe County break. And so we're going to punt that meeting 1 week down the road to April 13th, the following Monday. So just letting you all know that. Yes, Alma.
I'm looking at it, and it says that the meeting would have been at 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Yeah, that's correct, because we're going to go, what we decided in December is that our meetings would alternate between 5:30 this meeting. Our next one will be 10:30 to 12. The following meeting will revert to 5:30. So we'll alternate those times to make sure that we're all sharing the sacrifice of what we give up at various points in time. Okay. All right. So April 13th, we'll update, we'll send an invite, whatever we do to make sure.
Can I make a request for upcoming meetings? If there's anything we need to read or homework to do, would you mind sending it like at least 48 hours ahead of time? This last one was when it was the second, when it was on February 2nd, just a little bit more time to review, particularly if we have homework. I'd appreciate that. And then it may be just me, but I did not get an agenda for today's meeting. Yeah. So
I think I did it.
did you have it unless I missed in my?
Folder, I thought.
Did we have to go in the Google folder? But it was not sent out in an email.
It should have been in an email. I can't,
Yeah, I
it could
only
be
have
that
that
you were left off of that
memorandum.
email. I'm not sure. We'll double check that, but we will work to make sure that everyone has the agenda ahead of time. Do not hesitate to send me an email if you feel like you're missing something or unprepared for the meeting, and I'll make sure that y'all have it.
Yeah, great. And then just I know we keep saying like the surveys, if you wouldn't mind just adding links into like the agenda for the surveys instead of having to dig through the PowerPoint presentations, that would be helpful too. If we're supposed to be circulating surveys.
Yeah, you're saying having the survey links
Like a
in
link,
the
right? So I could
agenda.
literally like right now, go ahead and text it out to everyone as I'm walking home. That'd be awesome.
Kira.
Yeah, we did work to add that supplemental materials piece to the agenda, and we can add an introduction to that memo that has relevant links. I know it's a link fest in there. I think the solution for the additional materials can be to add some calls to action to the top of that memo that's linked at the bottom of the agenda. And materials will always go out on Friday. I'm not sure if there was a communication mishap that happened this time, but it's our commitment to get you Monday materials by Friday at the very latest, and we will continue that with that commitment. So I'm sorry if that didn't happen this month.
Okay. We are going to move on to our last item on the agenda, which is public comment. And as a reminder, any pre-submitted email and voicemail comments were shared with board members in advance. So we received those earlier. We won't be discussing those. Everyone who's signed up for public comment will have 3 minutes to speak. We'll ask that you introduce yourself and remember to speak into the microphone. We'll let you know when your time is up. And given the time, and we won't have a discussion about public comments, but they will certainly consider them and think about them moving forward in terms of the creation of future agendas. I do want to recognize there were multiple comments that came in regarding the fee in lieu of compliance regarding our urban forestry and how we manage it. So I know that those have been forwarded to the people who would need to know and that we've seen those. I don't think there are any public comments here. Alex, anyone?
Yeah, that's correct. We don't have anyone in the room, and we do not have anyone online for public
Okay.
comment.
So all the comments we received were online. So we're going to move on, and
So, I'm sorry, can I just ask a quick question on that?
yes,
So,
David.
so then, when people do public comment like that, that means that you all process it and it comes up for a future, like in 2 months we'll talk about it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Roberts rule of meetings that we're following is
Right,
that
right.
we won't have discussion on public comments. It could be that in the future they become an agenda item, or as we discuss whether it's relevant or where they're most appropriately discussed. But yeah, public comment doesn't include discussion on those items. Did that answer your question?
Can there be discussion of new business that is related to public comment, though? Are we going to have an opportunity to discuss? Is there any open discussion at the end of this meeting?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And out of respect to make sure we wrap up on
Now,
time.
can you ask that question again? I just want to make sure procedurally I understand the question.
Yeah.
I just asked if there was any open discussion at the end of the meeting for what we might like to have, on the agenda for the next meeting. If we could, because basically, as a representative of the Urban Forestry Commission, we have 4 ways that we're given that we can request that our commission to be activated, and one of them is to ask our committee to activate us for a task. And that is, I don't want to be breaching any laws or rules, but that's what public comment was sent in on, was to activate the UFC to formalize the fee in lieu process.
I'll let you handle, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to take it, or do you want me to? Yeah,
Was not on the agenda, that does put it in a little bit of a different place, and so I can turn it
Yeah,
back over to the
and-
chair to decide how you want to handle that.
Yeah, and with all due respect, Karen, obviously there were numerous comments related to the fee in lieu and the role of the Forest Commission. This is obviously an important agenda item. As chair, I think it's important that we be careful that our public comments don't drive our discussion or drive the agenda at this meeting. It's just hard to adapt. We've prepared the agenda ahead of time. I think it is important that we continue. Obviously, we have to respect rules around discourse among commission members, but I think those comments are noted, and there will be a conversation about those to figure out what next steps are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I also want it to just be on public record that I requested that this be on the agenda for this meeting so that it doesn't keep getting pushed forward. And it was not.
It is in the public record. Thank you. All right. So no other public comments. Our next meeting is Monday, April 13th at 10:30 to 12 o'clock. It is a hybrid meeting, is that right?
Technically, we have the capacity for it to be a hybrid meeting and prefer in-person participation whenever possible.
Yeah, that's what
let
I
us
would
know.
say is, obviously, people have busy schedules. If you're able to be here, that would be preferred. But that hybrid option is available. Also, I mentioned this earlier before we adjourn. I'd like to call attention to the section at the bottom of our agenda labeled Supplemental Resources. City staff will use this section to link to additional information that may be helpful for providing context for our discussions during meetings. Board members, please review these resources as part of your meeting preparation. And Christy, your comment was noted, so we'll make sure that all information is shared and that everyone has access. If you ever feel like you're missing anything, please feel free to message me. Don't reply all, right? Okay, but yeah, I'll respond to you quickly. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
And we do need to have a roll call vote. Dee?
Yes.
Alma? Yes. Christy?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
And I, a yes, and motion carries, meeting adjourned.